For today's network presentation, I'm going to talk about Teach for America. For the agenda, we'll first talk about what is Teach for America. We'll go into the network we were able to develop, how we can use this network, and why this matters to us today. So, Teach for America is an education nonprofit organization that takes recent college graduates and places them in inner-city, high-poverty schools for 2 years. For their 2 years of service, they'll earn a full salary and benefits, receive other benefits such as an AmeriCorps scholarship, and teachers can preference any one of the 53 regions nationwide. Now, when they preference, they'll preference top 5. And that's how I was able to develop the data. Because lucky for me, my wife is a TFA alum and works for the Teach for America corporate office. So I was able to get all the states that preferenced Oklahoma as their first preference. And the reason I focused only on the ones that preference number 1 is I wanted to keep the node count down to the assignment requirement. So for this data, we have a total of 26 nodes or states and 25 edges, which are the preferenced Oklahoma number 1. Now, because of this, we have a directed network, which means only things are coming into Oklahoma students. Nothing's coming out. It's a one-way street. Once we compile the data, this is what we came up with. Now, this is using Gephi's plugins for the geo layout and maps. And to be honest with you, I was pretty underwhelmed with its ability here. So I was actually able to find another plugin and lay out my data over Google Earth. And this is what we came up with. I like this much better because mainly you can see the state outlines and it's just easier on the eyes. So here we have our data, Oklahoma in the middle, obviously everything coming in. It's a directed network. And the links or edges have the thickness that correlates to how many students preference Oklahoma number 1. So how can we use this data? If I was a recruiter for TFA, this would be really valuable. I could focus on which states I want to delegate my effort. If I wanted to focus on states that were lingering, I could do that. Or if I wanted to focus on the top 5, this is where I would focus my effort. These show the top 5 states which students preference Oklahoma number 1. And to be quite honest with you, when I was developing these data, I was hoping to get all the students' top 5 for every student who preferenced Oklahoma number 1 to hopefully see if any students also preference the same locations for their 2 through 5 to maybe get some links in between the nodes as well. And from there, we could look at metrics like between the centrality. But in the 11th hour, the office neglected to give me the data for privacy reasons, which I completely understand. But nonetheless, what we have is still extremely interesting and still valuable if I was a recruiter today. So why does this matter? Like I stated in the previous presentation, Oklahoma Public Schools are scheduled for a walkout on April 2nd. But since TFA is largely a federally funded organization, the TFA core members actually by contract must remain bipartisan during their 2 years on contract, which means they cannot participate, even though most of them actively want to. So for the school districts who are contemplating not shutting down, that actually makes the TFA core members an extremely valuable resource. And this is kind of a hot topic that we're dealing with right now, especially my wife. And so I felt like, especially since this built on my last week's presentation, it was pretty interesting and extremely usable for me today. So hope you enjoyed. My sources are only Teach for America since this was organic data. So I thank them for their data and letting me use their labels and logos for the presentation. Thank you.